Really?
Oh.
Oh, man. But...
It's football season, motherfucker.
Almost. It's still preseason, right?
No, tonight is the kickoff of the NFL season. Patriots at Chiefs. Chiefs at Patriots. 7:30 p.m.
Oh.
Yeah, it is football season officially.
Well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, college football went this past weekend. It's also, it is officially football season. The Browns still suck.
I'm completely out of touch with it. I didn't even know it was kickoff tonight.
Oh, wait, the Browns are no longer the undisputed kings of the shit pile anymore.
Who's that?
This year, it's the Jets, according to the Las Vegas odds makers. They are the only team not favored to win even one game as of now from the Las Vegas odds makers.
Whoa.
Yeah, every single game they're the underdog. Doesn't mean they won't win a game.
Right.
But they're the only team that isn't favored to win any of their games. So anytime this year, if you place a bet on the Jets, and they'll revise their odds if the Jets come out and they're actually good, but again, what are the odds of the Jets being good? Anytime this year you would make a lot of money betting on the Jets, but that's if they win, and they won't, so actually you would lose a lot of money betting on the Jets, so don't bet on the Jets.
Unless you're super adventurous.
Maybe if they're
like betting underdogs.
It's hard to believe they're a team that actually. It's hard to believe that they're the team that actually won the AFC East one year. Over the Patriots that had Tom Brady actually starting. It's hard to believe that actually happened. And then now you look like they had a killer defense that year, and then it all just fell apart within 1 year, and they went back to being the Jets.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm excited.
I would be excited if I knew for sure that I could watch it, but I don't know yet. So what's your thoughts on this hurricane about to slam into Florida?
Man, they're fucked. It's pretty bad. I mean, I think they're starting forced evacuations today. Actually, I mean, I don't know if they're forced or voluntary, but I know they're starting evacuations as of this morning.
They're saying that it's worse than Hurricane Andrew, and a lot of people have said that Andrew devastated Florida. So if it's worse than Andrew, then yeah,
it is.
Can't imagine anyone wanting to stay behind.
But it might not be worse than Andrew when it makes U.S. landfall.
What?
I think it's forecast to make landfall as a Category 4 in the United States. It's not gonna make landfall as a 5 in the U.S.
And that's what Andrew was a 5?
If I remember right, I'm actually looking this up so I don't put some shitty info on here. But
all right.
This doesn't say whether it was Category 5 whenever it actually hit the U.S. or not.
Well, see, that's the crazy thing, is that even though if Andrew was a Category 5 hurricane, but it's not as bad as Hurricane Irma, which is coming through right now, Category 5...
Yep. It was a Category 5. It briefly weakened to a Cat 4 coming through the Bahamas, and then ended up as a Category 5 whenever it hit Florida. So there's a chance that Irma won't strengthen back to 5 before it hits the U.S., But
right. What I was saying is that what's crazy is, Hurricane Andrew as a 5, Irma is also a 5, but that's the crazy thing about Irma is that a Category 5, which is the highest category of a hurricane, starts with sustained winds at 155 miles per hour. Irma has 185 miles per hour sustained winds with wind gusts going up to over 200 miles per hour.
Yeah, that's what it's peaked at.
But I'm just saying, for two hurricanes, one being worse than the other, being the same category, You almost have to think, do we add a Category 6? Or, I mean, are storms getting a little too out of hand?
There's not really a reason for that, because the scale isn't actually based off the wind speed. I mean, it tells you like a range of wind speeds that scale actually exists in, but the scale's based off the likely damage it's going to cause. And there's a point at which everything's just fucked. And there's no real reason to add a Category 6 unless we reach a point where, you know, we can actually blow a skyscraper down or something. But that's far away, because Category 5, okay.
It's like a Category 10.
It's like a... But, like, okay, Category 5, for example, I'll just read it, because I had this in front of me, because I thought you'd say that. But catastrophic damage will occur. High percentage of framed homes will be destroyed, with total roof failure and wall collapse. Fallen trees and power poles will isolate residential areas. Power outages will last for weeks to possibly months. Most of the area will be uninhabitable for weeks or months. And that doesn't even mention the size of the storm surge, which is, of course, the biggest of any of the major hurricanes. So at that point where it's pretty much just leveling almost all the homes anyway, it's kind of redundant to create a Category 6, because since it's mostly based off damage.
Right, but that's besides flooding, obviously, with storm surge and just the rain by itself. I mean, that's largely what's causing the damage is the winds.
Yeah, I mean, and the flooding is usually the thing that causes the sustained damage.
Mm.
And Irma, man, at least where I live in the Carolinas, we might actually feel some of that, because there's a chance that it's going to like basically like kind of hit Miami and then hook out into the Atlantic and then just come straight up the eastern seaboard. And if it does that, it'll probably make a landfall as a Category 4 on either the South Carolina or North Carolina coast.
So what I saw, it would have weakened to a Category 3. But see, that's another thing, is that it's kind of unknown as of today, as of this recording. We don't know what it's going to do.
Yeah, well, that's the thing with hurricanes, especially. I mean, weather's unpredictable to begin with, but it matters where it steers, how warm the waters it's over are, how much of it's still over land while it hooks out. There's so many factors that go into it that it's extremely hard to predict it, even with advanced computer models. And you know, they've spent years, decades, trying to predict these storms, and they still sometimes absolutely shock people and hit an area that didn't evacuate while they evacuated another area that's now ready for it. But
well, regardless of the specifics, we definitely will feel its effects. We're definitely going to get a lot of rain and wind from it.
Rain, wind, perhaps tornadoes can always happen from hurricanes.
Mm-hmm.
It's how would you like to be one of the people that flies a fucking plane into the son of a bitch?
I don't see how they do it.
But they never crash. So, they must know what the hell they're doing, because you never see on the news, oh, look, the guys who fly planes into hurricanes lost a plane today. You never see that, so they must know what they're doing. I'm
sure it just matters where they're flying. I'm sure they're not flying into the hurricane.
No, I think they do it basically at, like, the top of the cloud level, but if you've ever seen footage of it, they're definitely inside some of the clouds. So
that's scary.
Yeah, I mean, if you ever see some of the footage of it, they're looking out the window and it's just like, whew, it looks like the heaviest fog you can imagine. Or if you've ever, whenever you still lived up here, if you ever drove on the Parkway and happened to just run into a heavy fog and you've got your headlights on, you still can't see like 5 feet in front of you.
For sure.
Yeah, it looks like that, but you're in a fucking airplane over the ocean.
Yeah, fuck all of that and everything about it.
There's no option to slow way the hell down and just relax.
I can't think of a number that you could pay me to do that job.
$1 billion.
All right, you're getting unrealistic.
Yeah, well, see, there is a number. It's just a number nobody's going to pay someone.
There's no realistic number you could pay me to do that job.
See, I'm the kind of... I would almost want to go on a ride along if I was confident it wouldn't crash. I mean, I'd be ready to shit my pants the whole time. Don't get me wrong. I wouldn't be like, oh, man, this is awesome.
I mean, the same thing...
That's after we land.
The same thing with those tornado chasers where they're in those reinforced vans. Some of them look like tanks with big radar equipment on top of it. I wouldn't do that either.
I used to want to do that whenever I was a little kid.
No, I don't do severe weather. I don't do tornadoes. I don't do hurricanes.
And then reality set in that I would be right in front of something that's capable of flinging me into a tree at a rate that pretty much makes me a greasy spot. And I was just like, yeah, that actually doesn't seem like a worthwhile career choice. We're going to forget about that.
Well, that's kind of the interesting thing about those vans is that they're designed to not be lifted up by the tornado because it doesn't allow air to get up underneath it to lift it up.
Yeah, that's how it is now. But if you watch like Storm Chaser videos from like the 90s and stuff whenever we were growing up, man, these guys are out here in friggin' pickup trucks. Like, yeah. It's just like, before they had all that, before they had all the money invested in it, there's people out here in, pickup trucks and minivans with meteorological equipment filming tornadoes and trying to stay the hell out of the way of them.
Trying to literally chase them.
Yeah, and, hope and be knowledgeable enough about the weather that you know when it's going to turn so it doesn't kill you.
Man.
I mean, I think everybody that was growing up in the 90s probably saw this. It was pretty popular, at least. It made the news. There was a video of some storm chasers were trying to follow one, and it did turn, and they didn't know what to do, or didn't have any other way to get out, so they went underneath an overpass. And while they're underneath the overpass, you see like a van actually get like pulled away and thrown, and then the wind ripping through the overpass and all that with with a bunch of other people under there, and they're getting other people to follow them under this overpass. But if you've never seen it, it's pretty crazy. I mean, they come pretty close to death because it actually, an underpass is not a good place to hide from a tornado.
Well, now they know.
Yeah, now they know that. But that video, that was all the shelter they had, and that can actually make the winds even more intense as it comes through, and it can just rip you out from under it or smash you against the concrete. I don't know. That was crazy to me. If you've never seen it, YouTube it, because I still remember that.
Yeah. Kind of puts things in perspective. Your normal everyday stresses and worries. Meanwhile, a giant funnel of clouds could end everything that you know.
Yeah, I mean, that's one way to look at it. I mean, it doesn't make your everyday stresses less relevant, because, I mean, you can't be the kind of person who's like, well, tornado might come tomorrow. Fuck it.
I don't know.
You can't live your life that way, because
people out in Oklahoma, that has to be at least part of their mindset.
I don't know. I mean, it seems like you can't plan your life around thinking that today's the last day.
I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about in comparison.
I mean, your everyday stresses, they're still valid, but it does. Mother Nature at any moment that it so chooses can just basically be like, yeah, you're fucked.
Yeah.
I mean, whether it's earthquakes, volcanoes, hurricanes, tornadoes, there's a number of ways you can just, if you're walking around a storm, you could just get hit by lightning. There's a number of ways in which Mother Nature can just be like, yeah.
You have zero power.
Yeah, that's the thing. You have, for all of the stuff we've done, unless you're one of those fucking HARP conspiracy theorists that thinks we can create one and aim it wherever we want and we keep aiming it at ourselves.
It's real, dude. You just haven't looked into it.
Anyways.
I'm joking. In case you couldn't pick up on my sarcasm, I do not believe in that.
But, yeah, so unless you're one of those crazy conspiracy theorists, fuck all we can do about it, man. Mother Nature can just not give a damn about all this technology, all these advancements we've made.
How much money you have.
Buildings a little more, yeah. We've made buildings a little more sturdy. We've managed to do that, but in the end, there's still a number of things that could render us completely and totally irrelevant.
For sure. So, I texted this to you a few days ago, but I kind of want your thoughts on the whole movie itself. But as a public service announcement for anyone who hasn't done it, don't watch V for Vendetta while high, especially today.
Well, okay, first of all, I watched that movie like 10 years ago, and I don't really remember it all that well. I remember the rough points. I remember it's basically a dystopian government at that point, but...
Really, if you were to watch it today, you would definitely see it. And definitely see, I guess, sort of the justification for the character in that movie.
Yeah, because I honestly, I really can't remember the plot of the movie well enough to really remember what exactly was going on.
It's basically just a super controlling government. They're extremely suppressive. Censorship is out of control. Basically, a militarized government. I mean, that's as much as I can explain it at this moment. But believe me, it's creepy.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like they plucked it out of pure fiction. I mean, look at North Korea. Look at what that government's like. I mean, a joke phrase in this country has become fake news, but they have literal fake news where they tell them that like North Korea won gold medals in the Olympics and to be proud of their country, and no, they did not.
Yeah, what are some of the things that they're told to believe about, if not Kim Jong-un, but Kim Jong-il? Like he invented something. I'm drawing a blank on it at the moment.
It's a number of things. It's everything from his martial arts prowess to the things he's invented,
right,
to it's pretty much they puff this guy up to be some sort of demigod, and it's literally all fake news. And I don't think everybody in North Korea is so stupid that they believe it, but you don't say in fucking public that you don't believe it.
Right. Well, here's how ridiculous it is. They're told to believe, and whether they do or don't, I don't know. But they're told to believe that the supreme leader, supreme ruler, whatever they call him, that he's so perfect that he doesn't even take a shit.
Is that true? That sounds like some bullshit.
I've heard that many times. So if it's not true, then they're doing a good job of spreading that rumor.
I don't know. That sounds like something that nobody would actually believe.
But that's the thing, is that they're told to believe that he's not a mere human. He's the perfect human, almost a god status human. Don't know what to say about that?
No, I had to Google it.
Okay.
But I don't feel like dailystar.co.uk is a damn reliable source, but
well, I mean, how do you determine a reliable source nowadays anyway?
Well, Donald Trump says it is.
Oh.
Duh.
Okay. So InfoWars and Fox News.
No. Not InfoWars. Gay frogs!
Gay frogs.
Have you never seen that?
I had heard about it. I heard it was kind of true, but it was exaggerated.
He just goes on this gigantic rant that I can't remember what the thing was he was saying was happening, but something was actually like turning the frogs gay, and it was part of some giant liberal conspiracy. Because, I mean, if I'm the left wing, the only thing that can solve my problems right now is gay frogs. So,
well, what I did, this was on the Joe Rogan podcast that I heard this from, that if I remember right, it was kind of true, but not that they were turning them gay. What the thing was is whatever substance, whatever chemical they were trying to dispose of, it was getting on this particular species of frog. And it wasn't making them gay, but it was making them act like a female frog. And I don't know if this is true. This is just what the person on that podcast was saying, is that in particular types of frogs, it was actually turning them into a fertile female frog. That was the words he used. I don't know the legitimacy of it, but that's what was said.
Huh. Well, that's something, I suppose. But
I don't know how that's supposed to work. I don't even know if I believe it at all. But yeah, that's where that came from.
Apparently, one of the lies that their media feeds them is that every time there's an election in North Korea, 100% of the people voted for Kim Jong-un.
Well, of course, because the percentage of people who didn't died.
Yeah, it probably no one actually bothers to vote.
I doubt it. I mean, what are you going to do? Check the only box on that piece of paper or whatever it is?
Apparently, they're also told that he's written 1,500 books.
Oh yeah, there's that one. The number of things that they're told to believe about him it's comical. I mean, you feel bad for the population who have to live in in that environment, in that culture, you feel bad for them. But on the outside, it's just like, how could you believe that?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. But I mean, here's the thing: I don't think the people in North Korea are necessarily so stupid. There's probably some that are dumb enough to believe it, but I don't think the people in North Korea are so stupid as that they actually believe this shit. It's just this is stuff that they're not going to publicly question because it's a crime. So I mean, I don't think that people over there are actually like, oh yeah, he wrote 40 books a month while he was in college. Yeah, that's something he actually did, and that 100% of people voted for him. Well, maybe, but doubtful. I mean, we can't even get 100% of the people to show up to vote in this country. So I doubt 100% of the people in North Korea have voted for him.
Right. I mean, I think it's pretty well established who wrote the most books of all time, at least fiction books.
Who is this?
The founder of Scientology, L. Ron Hubbard.
How many did he write?
I don't know without looking it up, but he apparently has written more fictional books than anyone ever.
Huh. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, and people follow that as an actual religion. The most prolific, apparently the biggest fiction writer ever, as far as number of books. They follow this guy's writing as a religion and haven't possibly considered that it might be fiction.
Well, he was serious that time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's very important then.
I don't see the number of actual books or whatever else he's written, but I do see here that. Oh, never mind. This is something else. My bad.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not even up on what Scientologists actually believe. I know little bits and pieces that I've seen. Most of what I know about Scientology I learned from South Park.
Probably one of the best episodes of South Park ever.
It's up there. That's a, if not top 5 episode, it's at least a top 10.
Mm-hmm.
That one's great.
Oh man, I mean, it's so weird being like things like South Park and people who got out of Scientology speaking out about it. It's kind of strange how it's still a secret that you have to donate so much time and money to get those certain levels before you are told these secrets.
And is it not so damn obvious? I mean, is that not obvious to people what they're doing? It should be obvious that is directly to extort money out of people. Because your donations are linked to whether you can learn the secrets or not? Huh.
Well, maybe, but maybe that's just maybe that's just caused because it's so new and we're talking about it in the age of information. I'm sure there were people like that who, when Christianity was becoming a religion, I'm sure there were a lot of people that said that this is a cult and blah, blah, blah. Little did they know it became the biggest religion in the world.
Well, and there were some obvious money grabs there, too, because the Catholic Church during it's either the Middle Ages or later the Renaissance period, but it actually probably was both. But you could pay a certain amount of money to the church for what was called an indulgence. And the Pope would forgive you a sin that you hadn't even committed yet so that you could, just for example, cheat on your wife. Fuck it.
And, so you're buying a hall pass?
And they were pretty much. Yeah, you're buying a free pass. The Pope's going to forgive you of your sins. You're not going to go to hell. It's all good. You can buy it ahead of time. It's an obvious money grab. But people, I guess, didn't think about it that way. And another thing they did, there were actually brothels that traced that you could trace the money back to the Vatican, and some were even openly endorsed by the papacy at different periods during the Middle Ages, depending on what the Pope's particular views on things were. Wasn't
there one relatively recent?
I don't know if there was one relatively recent. If there was, I didn't hear about that.
I think I heard that.
I mean, because where are brothels even still legal?
They're all over Europe, I thought.
I think it's only a few countries left. Like, I don't think there's, brothels all over England anymore.
Well, there's a damn brothel out in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Well, yeah, that's Vegas, man. You can walk around with a fifth of Jack without even a brown bag around it, just drinking out of it on the strip in Vegas. I mean, that's Vegas. Vegas is practically its own country.
Might as well be, right?
Yeah. I mean, you read what's legal in Vegas, and you're just like, what? You can do that?
I think it'd be faster to read what's illegal in Vegas.
Don't kill anyone. Okay, you're good.
Don't kill anyone and don't rob us.
Pretty much. The exception to don't kill anyone rule is if you rob us.
Yeah.
I don't know if we can base society off what's legal in Vegas.
Oh, man. I mean, I was in Vegas, as I mentioned before, pretty recently, but I didn't experience Vegas. You know what I mean? I didn't experience the nightlife or anything like that, but there was definitely an atmosphere of... There was a certain atmosphere of carefreeness, even during the daytime, just walking around. Yeah,
it's apparently, and if I've got this right, they don't have like a cutoff time on stopping drinking either. Like you can just be in a casino and just drinking till like 6 o'clock in the morning, still gambling.
In casinos, I think so, but I think I may be wrong, but I think one of the drivers that we had said that most bars close at 4 a.m. But yeah, casinos is like 24 hours, so.
And that might just be to clean up and start another day, because, right. And then like, because I've heard stories from people like those 24-hour, like all night open strip clubs.
Right.
You can just walk in there and they'll serve you like damn food and beer too, like at the damn strip club to keep you in there.
No windows, that whole thing.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, no, I'm not the kind of person that can afford a Vegas strip club, but damn.
I mean, speaking of religion, it's really, Christianity as well. It's so, yeah, perfect segue. Vegas to religion.
Vegas strip clubs. Speaking of prostituting yourself for money.
Oh man.
Go on.
That sounded like I wasn't listening, but I was listening. But I was reading something I had pulled up at the same time. But no, like speaking of religion, it's really interesting if you were to look back, especially in the very old stages of not just Christianity, but just any religion. It's kind of weird the similarities that they have, especially when it comes to some sort of enlightenment state, or it seems like every religion has that sort of that idea of enlightenment and how to get that. But specifically speaking, I'm talking about psychedelics, because in Hinduism, Buddhism, and even Catholicism, the pine cone is a very important symbol in those religions, and the pine cone kind of represents the pineal gland in a way.
I don't really know. I've actually never heard that about the pine cone having anything to do with the pineal gland. I also wasn't aware that the pine cone was much of a symbol in Catholicism.
Dude, it's right outside the Vatican.
Is it really?
It's on the Pope's staff as well.
Is it really? I mean, because he should probably get that looked at.
What the fuck? Different staff, John.
But is it really? I have to see a picture of this, because I thought his staff was the, slightly bent cross thing.
Look up some pictures, like especially the one in the Vatican. There's this huge statue of a pine cone.
Holy crap! Pope staff pine cone is actually like the first damn suggestion he gives me whenever I type Pope staff.
Right. Well, okay. Let me.
Yeah, it is. It's totally like the base where it leads up to the cross. Huh.
Right.
Never noticed that in all my life.
Maybe that's intentional. But let me preface this a little bit for people who don't necessarily know what I'm talking about as far as the pineal gland and things like that. And it's been said many times before in a bunch of different videos and documentaries and things like that. But the pineal gland is a gland in your body. It produces something called dimethyltryptamine, allegedly. They have found in rodents that this gland produces this psychedelic substance, and that's what DMT is. But it also produces like melatonin and, just different things like that. But it's called the pineal gland. Some cultures and religions kind of refer to it as the third eye. And something here to kind of tie it into Christianity, of course, you have the pine cone itself, but there's the story in Genesis 32, where Jacob is talking about the place Peniel. I'm trying to pull it up so I can read it. Okay, so Genesis 32:30 to 31, it says, "And Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, for I have seen God face to face, and my life is preserved. And as he passed over Peniel, the sun rose upon him." Now, apparently, the word Peniel means face of God. And it's really strange having, and that's just a short example, but having all of these religions talk about the pineal gland, or like the story with Moses and the acacia tree, which was allegedly an acacia tree, which contains DMT. But all these religions refer to the third eye, the pineal gland, having these profound experiences where they feel like they've met God face to face. And you have to really think if they're onto something in some sort of a way.
Well, yeah, you've also got the role that the Amanita muscaria mushrooms, if I'm pronouncing that right, is supposed to have played in the development of early religion, because it actually grew in that area, and they actually think that might have been somewhat related to the vision of the burning bush and similar things to that. It's possible. I mean, it's almost definite that there's a significant psychedelic aspect to religion, because it would explain some of the ridiculous shit that's in those books. It would explain how you could ever see that when, the rational mind knows none of that shit is real. So, I mean, maybe people did trip balls and think of, explanations to this world. But
see, if it wasn't for people today talking about their experiences with not just DMT, but any profound psychedelic experience, I would have to say that sounds kind of weird. But if you look into people talking about their trips, first of all, they're so similar. Like to play it off as, oh, they're just hallucinating. They're making it up in their head. They're high. That's all that's going on. I would believe that if their descriptions weren't so eerily similar. Now,
yeah.
Talking about DMT specifically, everyone talks about this humming sound that they get that intensifies until it, quote unquote, breaks reality. They talk about meeting entities like elves or jesters or even aliens, as they describe it, and being in this place of pure bliss and love. And everyone's saying this, so there has to be something else going on there besides just an hallucination.
Possibly, but you've also got the fact that, like, for example, now if you were to smoke DMT for the first time now, and I should obviously say I've never done it, but it's just knowing how the human mind works, right? All that stuff you just said is now your expectation of what DMT does. So could that feed into what the brain is going to do if you ever try it?
I mean, it's possible, but that's me. I've never done it as well, and quite frankly, I'm kind of afraid to do it.
But most people look shit up before they do it. And I mean, especially in the information age, most people form some sort of expectation. They look shit up because they want to know, like, hey, is this going to, make my heart explode? Am I going to die?
Yes, but if you look into Rick Strassman, he's the guy who did the clinical test of DMT in the 80s, I believe. He had volunteers to take this drug and give to express their experiences. And they didn't even know what DMT was when they volunteered for this.
Oh, Jesus, that's horrifying.
Right. But right. But the thing is that even though they had never met each other before, back in the 80s, no one knew about DMT. And it was a scientific study that Rick Strassman did. They still had similar stories. They had similar experiences. So how do you explain that one? Because I get what you're saying. If I was to do it with everything that I've read about DMT and heard about, yeah, for sure. Anything I say that would be similar to anyone else would be sort of criticized because I've looked into it so much. But these people, what would be the explanation for that?
I'm not really sure, honestly. I mean, it's possible that a similar substance could affect people in a very similar way. I mean, I've noted that, pot, it pretty much will affect different people. The same strain will affect different people pretty much roughly the same way, same type of feelings, same type of paranoia or whatever might come from that. So it's possible that it's affecting people in the same ways, pushing kind of the same buttons in different people's brains. And it's also possible that there's something more to it, but I'm such a skeptic, man, because I've read so much bullshit in my life about, collective consciousness and religion. It's hard for me to think that there's something out there and the only way to talk to it is to smoke a plant.
It isn't, though. That's the thing about DMT, is that it's produced by a large number of plants and animals. It's all over the world naturally. It's just that you can smoke it or drink it in the form of ayahuasca. There's many different ways to do it. Apparently you can do it through meditation. That yeah. You can trigger your own pineal gland and trigger your own dose of DMT and have these experiences.
There's also things like shamanic breathing that can apparently cause certain. But you're basically oxygen depriving the brain, and it can cause you to, trip balls. Right. But I don't know. It's really hard for me at this point in my life to be like, okay, well, maybe there's something to that. Maybe there's something out there. But
well, for sure, there's a lot of bullshit going around about a lot of different things, and this could be one of them, at least to a degree. But you have all the way back to Terence McKenna, all the way up to today with Aubrey Marcus, Joe Rogan, even, and Rick Strassman.
Oh yeah, there's a number of them. I mean, just what's come out of MAPS is pretty fascinating, and I feel like if there is something like this going on, it's some sort of natural phenomenon. It's not some spiritual thing. It's some sort of natural piece of the brain that we don't understand yet.
But what if what we would describe as spiritual is natural?
Well, that's just it. We basically go through scientifically, and like the things that we used to explain spiritually, we now explain naturally. And I think that these attempts at trying to understand the mysteries and attaching, spiritual things to them, like collective consciousness, the idea that we're all connected and that that's like a connection to the brain, and maybe we are through some natural thing that we don't know yet. But the exciting thing, I guess, to me is that it could lead to the discovery of something else about our brain. It could lead to the discovery of something else that's going on with our physiology.
Or reality itself.
Possibly.
Because as far as we're concerned, reality is what we can see, or, basically just anything that we can sense with our known senses. But if DMT or any other psychedelic substance can give you, or I guess sort of awaken a different sense, let's say, and it makes you aware of a different reality that does exist, but you're just not aware of it, then what is reality then?
Yeah, I mean, but since these things are basically touching on the DMT, either straight DMT or even psilocybin actually activates a certain amount of DMT in the brain. I mean, dreams are crazy anyway. The fact that you produce that shit when you sleep. I mean, here's a dream I had last night. I was playing Destiny, but I was kind of like in like a VR version of it, and I was playing it with you. And there are these weird bike things in the first game that aren't in the second game, but it was the second game, and there's this thing we were trying to jump on. And every time I fucking failed to jump on it, it would play some ridiculous-ass song. Like, the last time, before I finally woke up, missed the jump, and then fucking Jimmy Buffett's Margaritaville starts playing.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know if that has some sort of deep meaning, but that's what my brain was doing with DMT while it was sleeping last night.
I don't think it has to have.
It was playing Margaritaville for me. But
I don't think it has to have any sort of deep meaning. And plus, I think there's different levels of dreams that you can have. You can have those dreams that are completely ridiculous, like you were saying, because you were playing Destiny before you went to bed.
Yeah, so obviously that's in my head.
Right, but then you can have those dreams that are very clear and very realistic, and you wake up thinking, or at least for a few minutes, like I was really somewhere. I was really somewhere else. And especially, I mean, my wife, she has some weird dreams, to the point that I've told her many times that she should just quit her day job and become a writer and just make stories out of her dreams, because they're so detailed and they're so just out there.
Well, I need to start a dream journal, really, because I get those alpha brain dreams sometimes, man.
Right.
Like those just crazy fucking vivid. Even if they're out there, like actually that dream that I was describing, even though it was really out there, that had to be an alpha brain dream because it was way too vivid. We're talking like full color, full sound, not a lot of time skipping.
Right.
So, a ridiculously vivid dream for such a ridiculous dream. But so I wanted to do that for a while. Actually, I actually might start that. I actually might make that a goal, to keep a journal by my bedside and actually write all this shit down and see if I can get a little bit better at dream recall, because dreams are slippery. And that's another parallel with what you read about DMT trips and all that. Even other types of psychedelics, they're slippery. It's hard to like hold on to what you remember seeing and recall it. They're slippery.
Yeah, they've said that it's hard to remember, but it's also hard to describe. That it's so profound and so out of the ordinary that there's no words to describe it accurately. And dreams can be that way too. I mean, you can kind of describe a dream, even though you remember it, it's hard to explain.
Yeah, and I think the reason that my skepticism centers around whether there's some real thing going on there as some sort of tapping into another reality or collective consciousness, I think the reason that's what my skepticism centers around is that's what I want there to be. That's what I want to find out is real. But I'm so skeptical at this point that I'm just like, nah, there's some regular ass explanation for this. It's nothing.
I think that everyone needs to come to terms with the fact that we are humans and that we don't know everything about everything. We only know what we can prove right now. And to 100% believe in or 100% not believe in anything, to me, is just the wrong way to live, or the wrong way to think, at least.
I mean, I've got my my beliefs, you could say, or lack thereof. But honestly, at the presentation of evidence, I'm ready to change them. If some degree of actual evidence can be shown.
So you're saying that unless it could be proven to you with the senses that you consciously have, it 100% doesn't exist.
I'm talking like studied and scientifically proven. That's what I want to be able to believe in it. Like not
scientifically proven is based off of that.
Yeah, so pretty much yeah at this point, because I've believed in bullshit too many times in my life, from just religion to psychic bullshit, to the point that I'm just like, no, I'm not going to be duped one more time by some ridiculous fucking nonsense. I'm gonna just use my eyes and my ears, and I'm going to, if it doesn't make logical sense and you can't prove it with science and verify it, then fuck it, it's not real.
Right, but I just don't see how we could possibly be 100% sure of anything.
I mean, we're not. I mean, but then again, if this ends up being discovered as some sort of natural phenomenon, we'll eventually be 100% sure of it. We're 100% sure if the sun rotates the Earth, that's a natural phenomenon. We're 100% sure why the aurora borealis exists. That's a natural phenomenon. If this ends up being a piece of natural phenomena, then we will understand it. We'll find out that it's natural. We'll study it. We'll find some sort of way to do it in a lab environment and test it again, compare those and prove it, and we'll be like, oh, okay, that's what this is.
Well, that might be happening sooner than you might think.
Well, I mean, that's why reading stuff from maps is really exciting, because it's close to maybe discovering like what's actually going on here that causes this. And I'm not saying like it invalidates it as far as like a way to learn or a way to grow, because I've had regular ass sleeping dreams that have affected the way I move through the next few days of my life.
Right.
So, I mean, if it happens in your head and it affects, and you learn a lesson from it and it affects your life in a positive way, then it's real enough in that sense. Even though you might have just been tripping balls or high as a kite. If it affected your reality in a tangible way and gave you positive change for your life, then it doesn't really matter whether it's just synapses firing in the brain or whether you're actually talking to beings or, creatures from another reality. It doesn't matter as long as the effect is the same.
I did have sort of a mini trip a little while ago. I guess this was about almost a year ago. It wasn't a psychedelic trip, which is important to note. It was more of a dissociative trip. It was off of marijuana, and I don't smoke a lot, and I don't smoke often, and
he's saying he's a lightweight.
For sure. But I was reassured that it wasn't laced with anything, but at the time I was convinced it was laced with something, because I had smoked before this and never had anything like this. But it was a dissociative trip, which is, there's many symptoms for that versus a psychedelic trip. Psychedelic trip is more, I would imagine, because I've never had this, I would imagine it's a more intense version of this, plus you have the visuals of the bright colors and things like that. But what I did experience with this was, out of the list of symptoms or the experiences you can have with a dissociative trip, definitely the time distortion. That was a definite thing. After I had gotten home, my wife went to use the restroom, and when she came back, I asked her worried. I was like, "How long were you in there?" Because I was trying to figure out like how bad was this time distortion. She said like a minute or two. I'm not joking. It felt like she was in there for half hour to an hour. Like it was time slowed down intensely. But see, the thing about this is that I was aware that this was happening. I wasn't losing myself in any way. There was a certain point during this experience where I was like, okay, this is whatever I took, whatever is happening to cause this is happening. I should explore it, I guess, right? So I had the time distortion. I had, to an extent, I almost said I had an ego death, but that's not entirely accurate. I drove myself home, and when I was driving, I started to feel it starting to get more intense. I started to feel as if my hands weren't there, even though they were gripping the steering wheel. Like from the shoulder down, it was as if they just weren't there. And I had to continuously squeeze the steering wheel to remind myself that they were in fact there. But as I was driving, I started getting lost in my thoughts, which happens with marijuana anyway, but very, very intensely and very, very deep. And it got to the point where I totally forgot I was driving. And I would kind of snap out of it and like, oh my God, am I still on the road? Am I still doing the speed limit? And I would look down, I would look around. Yep, I'm still in my lane. And I look down at the speedometer, still doing the speed limit. But the thing about the ego, and I don't know if this is correct, but this, at the time, I remember thinking this. It was as if I was being lost in my thoughts, but my ego or something else was completely separate from me. And was actually telling me, don't worry about driving. I'll handle the driving, and you just do your thing.
It sounds like a little bit of a separation of the conscious and the subconscious, just a little bit.
Yeah, that could definitely be it too. That could be what was going on. But I mean, it happened a few times on the way home. It was like, oh my God, am I still driving okay? And every time it'd be perfect. I wouldn't be swerving or anything. Very weird. But
so, for the record, you're condoning driving vehicles while being absolutely blasted out of your mind, right? That's something everyone should do.
I'm definitely not condoning this. First of all, I didn't even know this was going to happen until I was already driving. But I definitely don't condone driving on anything.
My pants. I'd have been looking for the nearest Waffle House.
But that was
never a waffle. I need to sit.
More on the time distortion. Exactly. More on the time distortion. That drive from this person's house back to our house was, I don't know, between 5 and 10 minutes. I mean, maybe closer to 5 minutes. Again, just like with my wife going to the bathroom, it felt like the drive home felt like hours. It felt like hours. And that's why I was afraid. I was like, am I like going like 5 miles an hour on this interstate? What's going on? Nope, I was doing 65 the whole way. So it was like a very clear time distortion. But I also experienced nausea. I did eventually throw up, but one of the things that this was after I was home, I was sitting on the bed. I had identified that I was having whatever this experience was. And I was like, okay, I remember having this thought. I need to ask questions, like to myself. And I don't remember the questions, but I do remember sort of the way that I thought of them at the time was realizations or epiphanies, even though in reality, as I am here sober, is probably not any of those. But at the time, that's what I thought they were. And one of the things that it was the phrase, God is the universe, but he is not the creator. And that thing just kept repeating. Whatever that means, I have no idea at the time or even today. I don't know exactly what it means beyond the words themselves. But and another one was, this isn't a visual hallucination, but to try to put it into a visual, this was my thought, was that life itself was sort of like connect the dots. You know, in the puzzle books for little kids that connect the dots and make a picture. And the dots on this paper were very significant moments in everyone's life. And the line represented the progression of time, okay? And the line would go, and you could choose which direction that line went to. You could choose which dot that line went to, but the line itself, the journey between dots, are completely out of your control. And at the time, the realization that I got from that is that there is that free will and fate exist at the same time. And long story short, too late, but that was my experience with some form of quote unquote trip, even though it was nowhere near a psychedelic trip.
Yeah, I've never been that dissociative, I guess you could say, as on really anything. One time I got so drunk I thought I was talking to the devil, but I don't have real memory of that. So, yeah, that was pretty interesting. And that's just booze. And that's legal. Shit.
Yeah, that shit's legal, but something that could potentially open your mind to a number of different things is illegal. That's very strange. But what I was saying about it might happen sooner than you think, going back to that, is back in July there was this paper there was this paper that was talking about this web marketer out of Florida. His name is Egon Ehrenberg. Mm-hmm. He's wanting to use DMT. These are his words, to contact aliens.
Well, I'm pretty sure you could use it to think you contacted aliens, but I mean...
Well, I mean, that's...
works. I mean, if it works, that would be incredible, but I guess I don't...
How do you prove it?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I don't know how you prove it, but, I mean, I guess that's sort of his argument, is that, you know, I guess not necessarily aliens from a different planet, but aliens from a different so-called dimension. And his argument is we need to use DMT. He wants to use DMT specifically as a tool. Not unlike, the things that we used to not believe was real or didn't know was real. I mean, we would have never known that bacteria was real without an improved microscope. We would have never known the structure of DNA if we'd never used X-ray photography. So these tools, these technologies, helped us make discoveries that we would have otherwise never have made. And he believes that using DMT in a very specific setting, on sort of like an IV drip in a way, I guess not too much unlike what Rick Strassman did, and having a very measured and stable DMT drip and studying the effects on that.
I'd be interesting to read how that turns out. Where's he going to do that? Where is that going to be legal? Is he going to be able to do that in the U.S.?
As far as I know, none of that is legal in the U.S. He would have to go to a different country. But he's out of Florida, so maybe he's going to try to do it in the U.S. But I don't know. The U.S. is so weird when it comes to drugs.
Well, they've opened up some clinical things. I don't know if you saw this week. They actually, from the MAP studies, the FDA just issued a statement that MDMA, ecstasy for people who want the street term, is going to be used, that it shows promise as a breakthrough treatment for PTSD. MAPS has known that for years.
Mm-hmm.
But for the FDA to come out and say that, that's a huge step. That is a huge leap.
Well, especially when you think about the history of it and why a lot of drugs are illegal today. I mean, you could, in all honesty, in a large part, you can thank Nixon. He obviously played a big part on getting all of these drugs, especially psychoactive drugs, what's the word I'm looking for, criminalized. And it was because during that time, that was a time where a lot of people were experimenting with these drugs. And that's where you got the hippie movement, the civil rights movement, and all that kind of stuff. Like, things that sort of shook the structure of society.
I think the civil rights movement was coming drugs or no drugs. I don't think that had as much to do with drugs as it just had to do with people were tired of being dehumanized. But
well, I think more accurately put, it made people more inclined to go with it.
I think it opened the youth of that generation up enough that for the youth of that generation, it broke the racial barrier. Okay. To where that you saw the white youth marching alongside and supporting, the African American population, and I think that's the role the drugs had. Is I think it opened up the youth of what would have been possibly people who maybe hadn't have opened their minds as much, but I think that kind of opened up the youth that would have been on the other side a little bit to be more sympathetic to the cause and even eventually march with them.
Right, but because of that, it was shaking the foundation of people who are in power. It made them kind of scared that they might lose that power. So how do you fix that? Well, you criminalize it and you make it illegal for people to even possess it in any amount.
Oh yeah, the 60s and 70s saw for the first time drug use and specifically psychedelics and marijuana become a serious issue for the United States government.
Right, and that's why you have marijuana that has little or zero negative effects being more illegal than heroin, which has a gang of negative effects. And the fact that marijuana is more illegal than heroin is because of that.
Well, yeah, because heroin, you're not going to mark the streets on heroin. You're probably just going to slowly, quietly kill yourself. And that goes back to the idea. I mean, of course, they don't really care about us. The people in power, they care about power.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how you get to be in power. You care about power.
Right. A lot of people who don't care about being the most powerful person in the world, they're not going to pursue power.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't want to be a powerful person, you're not going to play that game.
Right. And if you take psychedelic drugs, you're not going to want power because you'll realize there's no point in having power.
I think somebody who's a little more conscious could possibly want power because they felt like they could use it better than the people who have it, but
that's ego.
That is ego, but is it? Here's the thing: the ego is useful, man. Sometimes the ego is right.
Sometimes the ego is necessary for survival. It's not necessary for spiritual enlightenment.
Yeah, but spiritual enlightenment isn't the end game of humanity. I mean,
is it not?
Of course not.
Why? I mean, how can you say that?
If we sat around waiting for spiritual enlightenment, would we have any of the shit we have right now?
I'm not talking about sitting around and doing that. I'm talking about as a finish line for humanity. If we continue progressing, don't you think that we'll reach a certain point of enlightenment where
Probably
we
not,
realize that
there's always another mystery because we can never figure this all out because, man, look at physics alone. All right, take some of the woo-woo stuff out of it and look at physics alone. Every time
physics as we understand it today, okay.
Every time a major discovery is made in physics, or even whenever they discover a new particle, it seems just a few years down the road, there's another new particle, a smaller one, or something that behaves the way they didn't think it behaved. And they have to redefine their understanding again and again and again. So I don't think spiritual enlightenment is really possible. Maybe the closest thing to spiritual enlightenment would be to realize that there's no such thing as spiritual enlightenment.
That might be it.
Because
you just kind of blew my mind right there.
There's no way we can ever figure all this shit out. The universe is too big for our tiny little monkey brains to figure all of it out. There's no way.
There is no spoon.
But if we figured out so many things about what I was getting into with the physics thing is like every time there's a new discovery, it just creates 5 more new questions or 20 more new questions. So if we were to start to figure out some of these things down the spiritual pathway for humanity, it would just open new questions. But my original point with saying that's not the end game for humanity, or that we wouldn't have all this, stuff we've got that's even making all this research possible without the ego is, that's what creates the idea that you can look at somebody else and be like, that's wrong, I can do it better. And then you go about, doing your research or creating your product or your idea. And it can, if Elon Musk didn't look at, certain things in his businesses, like, the Tesla automobile, if he didn't look at electric cars and go, I can do that better, we don't have Tesla.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's the ego is necessary to kind of drive forward innovation because somebody's going to look at it and be like, yep, I can make a better one.
Yeah, but if you take into consideration of the very common description of psychedelic experiences of you realizing that reality is fractal, that there is no beginning, there is no end, everything is gets infinitely small and gets infinitely bigger, that even what we would consider total enlightenment, maybe that's still not the finish line. It's just so far beyond our reach that we see it as something as an end goal.
Yeah, and we'd probably get there and be like, oh, well, look at this brand new mystery we have no idea how to even wrap our heads around. It's as our knowledge
Who's God's God?
Exactly. There's always the who made God question. That's one of the classic questions of philosophy. Who made God?
Right.
And it's kind of one of the fun little paradoxes I like to use on religious people whenever they insist there has to be a God to create this universe. It's one of the very first things. Well, who created God? And they go, God didn't need a creator. Whatever ridiculous explanation for why God doesn't need a creator. And then I go, okay, so God doesn't need a creator, but the universe does. Well, the universe needs a creator because it's and they'll give like a list of physical reasons and all this. I'll be like, it sounds like you're saying that since we know the universe is real, it needs a creator, but since God is, we don't know what could possibly be beyond God, he doesn't need a creator. No, he can just have existed forever.
See, when I was younger, I used to love getting into debates with religious people. I used to love debating them, and I would never stop until I would hear them say one of two things. I would never stop until they said either, well, prove he doesn't exist, or two, because I have faith. One of those two things in some form, because I would know back the way my mindset was back then, that would mean that I won that debate. That you fell back to your go-to argument to something that you know very well that I can't answer or prove or anything like that. Therefore, I won. Well, today, I don't like debating religion with anybody. I like discussing religion, but if I feel it turning into a debate, I have zero interest. And it's because you can't, it's a never-ending debate. You will never win or lose that debate because you can't prove God exists or doesn't exist. You can't prove it either way. So it's pointless to have that debate.
It's one of those things where I feel like oh, go ahead. I didn't know you were done.
Well, I was just going to say that, my wife, on the other hand, she's basically the shining example of an atheist. She's just as blindly faithful, just in the opposite spectrum of someone who's blindly religious. And she has this family member. I'm sorry, another story time. It won't be as long, I promise. But she has this family member who is one of those just blindly religious people. He has an explanation for every contradiction in the Bible, and she was trying to talk to him about the ancient aliens mindset, the ancient aliens interpretation of the book of Ezekiel, talking about the flying chariot of, fire, whatever. I forget how exactly it's described.
That takes faith to believe in too, though.
Exactly, yes. But she was trying to get him to explain what that means if the Bible is 100% true. And he was saying, well, God is so powerful, how can you say that wasn't the case? Like if God wanted to send down a flaming shield, why couldn't he send down a flaming shield? Literally. And it was
why, with millions of people praying, can he not steer a hurricane?
Exactly. I mean, but that's just an example on why I don't debate with people anymore. That is, you just can't. You can discuss it all you want. I would love to discuss anyone of any religion, but that's why I don't debate.
It's kind of one of those things. The only thing I sometimes debate is whether a specific religion can possibly be right, because I can't prove or disprove the existence of, like, God. So, like, if you're a deist that doesn't hold to a specific set of religious doctrinal beliefs, you just think there is a God, I kind of, it's hard to argue with you, because our points basically eventually come down to, because, deists don't always hold the position that God has personal involvement with our lives or the world.
Right.
So some hold the idea that he's pretty much the creator in the sense that he, sparked the Big Bang the same way we would strike a lighter, and then just let it do its thing.
I didn't know that had a label, because that's kind of how I think today.
Yeah. So if you look into that, that's harder to argue with. But when it comes down to, like, specific religious doctrinal beliefs, like if you want to believe God has a personal role in your life, or that he has influence over the minutia and the movements of the earth, man, that's ridiculous, because you run into so many contradictions. Like, I'll just start on the one I'm most familiar with. Okay, Christianity. All right, you've got a loving God. Okay. Why does this loving God create so many rules that make his people absolutely miserable?
Wrathful and vengeful God. We talk about loving.
Yeah, why does this God, while people pray and pray and pray, watch his people drown, watch them burn? It's like, why there are the people who claim to speak for this God, why do they immediately take to the TV, these televangelists and these, fucking vampires, take to the TV and, go like, oh, Katrina hit New Orleans because of gay people. No, it didn't. It hit New Orleans because it's on the fucking Gulf. That's where hurricanes live.
That's where hurricanes live.
It's been happening for centuries.
You're right.
Storms go off the coast of Africa, they go across some warm water, they hook up and they find some more warm water, and they come across the coast of the Gulf.
I mean, it is kind of interesting that a lot of religions, most religions, sort of want you to let go of your human self to embrace your spiritual self. And I guess, suffering is a way to do that, I guess.
But my human self is my spiritual self. That's, if there is a spiritual side to any of this, it's contained within the human. And there shouldn't be some throwing off what is enjoyable for, the human in the moment, whether it's a alcoholic beverage or a joint or sex or, going to the gym and working out. Any of those things, they're all, physical, enjoyable pleasures of this world. And if there is a spiritual side to me, spiritual me loves that shit too. And
you sound very Satanist right now, sir.
Well, moving on. Anyways.
Do you worship the devil?
There is no devil or God.
Do you worship Satan?
Nope.
You worship yourself. Is that it?
You could sum it up that way. Let's just leave it as I'm an atheist.
worship is a strong word.
Yeah, it's not really worship. It's more just like I do my own thing, my own way.
Okay.
And I really think that when you really look at it, it's hard to say that like these personal, directly involved in your life gods can exist because they create way too many contradictions. To where that even like if I take a moment, I put myself in that God's shoes, I think about how pissed off I'd be at humanity.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example,
that's assuming that he gives a shit.
That is assuming that he gives a shit. But like, even if you accept the Bible as true, okay, if you look at places in the Bible where people were like needed help, very rarely was there some significant divine intervention. Okay.
Okay.
Most often, it's some messenger or prophet or some servant of his that is sent to help these people, right? Well, recently in Texas, you had a case of Texas's Secretary of State refusing some help from Canada and instead telling them to pray for them. If I was God, I'd be like, yeah, you just turned away the help I sent you. You weren't paying attention to your Bible where I sent people to help you, not me. So it would just piss me off that someone just turned away help and then was like, please help me.
Mm.
So it's like you run into like these ridiculous contradictions where people want to lean on their faith but not accept the help that's right in front of them. And you also run into the contradiction of, well, prayer has power. Well, millions of people are praying for this and nothing's absolutely happening at all. Maybe prayer doesn't have power. Well, it's God's will. Well, if it's God's will, why are you praying about it? If he's going to do whatever the hell he wants, and apparently what he wants is drowning your ass, why are you bothering to pray to him?
He loves you, though.
Of course he does. That's why he created an ever-burning fiery pit for the people that don't love him back. Jesus, God is like a teenage emo kid wanting to burn all the people who were mean to him.
Blasphemy. How dare you?
Oh, I love blasphemy, and you know it.
It's almost like if there is a God, like a God that created the universe, there's no way he could give a shit. First of all, I mean, just like you said, the Big Bang is like God striking a lighter. I strike a lighter every day, and I give zero shits of what goes on in that flame. As long as it lights my cigarette and goes out when I put it down so it doesn't catch my house on fire, I don't care about it. So how does he care enough for not only that universe, but that particular galaxy and that particular planet and that particular person to...
Yeah, I mean...
Yeah.
I mean, and again, of course, most Christians would probably be like, well, you just can't fathom the depth of God's, ability to understand and intervene and blah, 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 blah.
Neither can you, bitch. So why are you trying to preach it? Why are you trying to explain God to me when you yourself say that you can't explain God?
Yeah, it's kind of a thing where they want you to believe, but they don't want to have to explain it too much. And that's a problem with my...
Well, they get in trouble if they have to explain it too much.
Which, I guess that's a problem with the way my brain works. If I get into something, I'm going to study it. I'm going to examine it. I mean,
I am too. That's what that was. Yeah.
You know this very well. At one time, I was a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
I've devout even at points. I read, I studied, I believed, and at some point something just clicked and the shit didn't add up. And I realized that it was just like, okay, this doesn't work. And that, leads to a period of agnosticism that now leads to a pretty strong period of atheism, where the only way I can see that there's any sort of God at all is kind of the deist interpretation of God, where that he's not personally involved in our lives, and that he is, more or less just he set this all in motion, kind of almost like to harken back to something we talked about, a few episodes ago, almost like when your computer generates the Minecraft world, and then the world just goes about its thing, almost like that, and it ceases to further intervene in the world at that point. Mm-hmm. That's the only way I could even see it even existing. But for now, man, it's just like, I feel like we should really just take care of ourselves and try to,
quit treating each other like shit.
Absolutely. I mean, that's
for something that preaches being good to your neighbor. You guys are pretty shitty to your neighbors.
Some of them. I mean,
I'm talking. No. I'm not talking about individual. I am generalizing. I'm talking about the religion itself throughout history.
Yeah, and even doing that, I mean, there's no true central voice for Christianity. You've got, like, this church over here may be a bunch of assholes, and they may have a really loud voice, and then this church over here may have got a bunch of people in a van to go down and donate blood for people who've, been through a tragedy. For sure. It's kind of one of those things where, like, I base it mostly on
the person,
what it does. Person to person, from my personal interactions with people of faith. But when it comes to trying to look at the religion as a whole, the beliefs, ludicrous. But pardon me, a bit of hiccup there. But if those beliefs lead to good being done, I'm cool with it. If those beliefs lead you to actually go out and be nice to somebody, if those beliefs lead you to stop in the middle of the night and help somebody get the hell out of a ditch, I'm cool with that. If those beliefs make you a better person, do I think there's a way that you could be a better person without them? Sure. But if that's what works for you, then I guess that's what works for you.
Right. I totally agree with that. Like, I'm not talking about the people who, where religion, any religion, not just Christianity, has helped them in any way or, helped them become a better person. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the people, and you all know what I mean, the people who abuse religion and use it for their own personal gain and to be shitty to everyone about it. Whether it's people who want to make money or gain power, even down to the person that wants to Bible thump you. That's what I lovingly call the Christians that love to judge people simply because they're different than themselves. Those are the people I'm talking about.
That's a human trait, though. It's like
exactly.
It's very easily seen in religion. But come on, man, we both know atheists that do it too. You believe in God?
Yes.
You believe in God? Huh? What's your IQ? 65? I mean,
yeah,
come on. Those people. You know those people, and I do too.
Of course. And I think they are just as obnoxious, in a lot of ways, more obnoxious than the Christians that, that hate you because you don't believe in their God.
I'm stealing that fucking word, by the way. Christians, I'm stealing that shit. That's a good one. I like that.
But yeah, I mean, I can't identify as an atheist because, well, first of all, that I don't believe in absolutely nothing. Or, chemical chance. I don't believe in that wholly. But at the same time, I don't like how atheists treat other people. I mean, I view atheism in so many ways. They're the exact same as a religious person. They're just on the opposite end of the spectrum when it comes to belief. They can be just as much of an asshole as the Christian. If you were to think, what is the stereotype atheist? It's the condescending intellectual that thinks that you're automatically dumb for believing anything that can't be proven with scientific method. Yeah, and I think that's just as toxic as someone who is Bible thumping.
Yeah, and I try not to cut people down for it. At times, there are people talking about this stuff like the hardest one for me, even harder than religion, man, is when someone starts talking to me about fucking astrology. That is the hardest one for me. Like the hardiest Bible thumper does not like get to my "are you fucking serious" nerve as quickly as someone who starts talking about, well, Saturn is in Virgo. I'm fucking done with you. You got 4 words out and I'm done.
What's your sign? I'm a Pisces. Are you a Leo? I knew you were a Leo when I first met you.
If somebody asks me what my sign is, I'm probably going to flip them off. That's my sign.
I mean, obviously, because of the internet and the endless quizzes you take, you know, of course I know what sign I am, but I don't think it means anything.
Oh, of course. I mean, I know what it is. I've stumbled across enough of it that I know, that, May 28th, Gemini, okay, whoopie-doo. You know what that means? Nothing. It's just some shit people made up. There's a lot of shit people made up, but it's some shit people made up. I mean, there's the Chinese have their own little subset of astrology.
And it's Chinese calendar?
Yeah, and their astrology is based around different things. And it's, if that shit was real and it was some kind of science, as some people who are into it say it is, then the different groups of people around the world studying it would have come to some degree of consensus. But they didn't. Why? Because they couldn't agree on what bullshit to make up.
No, I want to believe in this.
Yeah, that's pretty much that's. I feel like that's religion in a nutshell.
Man,
but
I think we cracked the code.
I think we sound like the pretentious atheist / agnostic douchebags at moments, but yeah, maybe.
Well, slap whatever label you want on me. I am who I am, and I just think any blind belief in anything and any blind non-belief in anything is equally closed-minded and the wrong way to think.
Yeah, I try not to be blind in non-belief. I am pretty solid on the atheist thing, but it's that if somebody can give me some evidence, I'm ready to change my mind. If you can give me something concrete, if you can give me some evidence, I'm ready to change my mind. I'm not like ready to stick my fingers in my ears and just go la 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 la. I don't hear you. No, if you can give me some evidence, if you can give me something real, I'll listen to you.
But see, I'm the same way. But at the same time, I can't subscribe to either or because I know us as humans don't have all the answers to even begin to solve that mystery.
Yeah, I know, because, I mean, if the existence of the universe is a consequence of matter existing, what made matter? That question is always the question, but that's the thing, that can scale up infinitely. Okay, what made the thing that made matter? What made that?
Right. But if you were to say being religious is yes, being atheist is no, and agnostic is I don't know, I mean, I would have to be agnostic, I guess, because I can't say. I really just don't know. And nobody knows.
My answer is like, no until you prove me wrong. That's my answer. No until somebody can prove me wrong.
I don't know. That's just, I feel like I'm subscribing to something without the answers, and I don't know.
I mean, obviously, I welcome the idea that we don't have all the answers, and we talked about that with science. This stuff really may scale infinitely up and infinitely down, and really, humanity might blow ourselves off the map before we ever figure this shit out.
Super depressing thought, yeah.
I mean, we're inches away from it politically. It's.
I don't know, politically. There's been cycles in politics.
Oh, what I mean politically isn't necessarily the United States and our political situation. I'm talking about the growing tensions across the world and how they involve nuclear weapons, and that's not good.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I hope we don't, annihilate ourselves before we ever get the answer, but it's not outside of the realm of possibility.
Right. Well,
unfortunately, I wish that shit was, but
yeah. Well, I think we should go ahead and end it there before it gets too super depressing. We already did an hour and a half. So
yeah. An hour and a half and a heaping helping of There Is No God from yours truly, but
Jesus.
But you see, here's the thing. I don't find that depressing. I really don't find that depressing. Like, some people think life is meaningless without the idea of some sort of eternal life or some continuation on after this. I don't necessarily feel that way. it's more like, if this is temporary, you can find beauty in impermanence.
Yes.
The fact that whenever I walked outside this morning, to just get some fresh air, that, I felt that crisp fall air, a little bit of cold air going into the lungs.
It was 53 degrees this morning. I fucking loved it.
And, felt the sun and the wind a little bit. The fact that, today might be the last day I do that, well, take a moment, savor that moment. And it doesn't have to be depressing just because, that there may not be some big celestial force looking out for you. Because, I mean, if there isn't, then you won the damn cosmic lottery. You're on a planet that evolution actually happened on. You got to exist for a little while, experience it all, taste it all, and when it's done, it's done. But enjoy it while it's here. Wise
words from the wise Jonathan. All right, we're going to go ahead and end it here. Real quick, to the listeners, I want to say that we're on episode 5 right now. We are trying to launch onto iTunes and Google and all of that by episode 10. So we're at the halfway mark. And if you're listening to this and you've made it this far, congratulations for putting up with our bullshit. We appreciate it.
But don't you dare fucking apologize. This is a luxury to hear our bullshit. What are you talking about?
It's a privilege. We should make them pay for it. Anyway.
God, no.
No. But anyway, what I was going to say, though, if you could do us a favor and tell your family, tell your friends about us, even if you hated it and you're like, these guys fucking suck, I'm never listening again. Still, tell your family, tell your friends, tell them you'll never believe these people. These guys are so stupid, you've got to listen to it. Do that for us.
We'll suck your dick.
Just, yeah. Why not?
I expected a what the fuck out of that.
Anyway. But yeah. Just spread it around. Tell your family, tell your friends. Just, share the link. Subscribe to the YouTube, even though the YouTube isn't it's not going to be the main source for this podcast. But anyway, do you have any parting words, Jonathan?
Nope.
You're such an intriguing person.
Look, man, that shit I said before the shameless plug you just made there was probably the best thing I'm going to say all podcast. So,
it wasn't a shameless plug. I'm trying to engage the audience here. We're at the halfway mark of our goal.
You said yes to offering blowjobs, damn it. That's a shameless plug.
I said yeah because I was going to continue my thought. I didn't realize what you said until you were laughing your ass off. Anyway, thanks guys for listening. I hope to get some feedback from you guys if you have any. But until next week, my name is Sean.
And I'm John.
Later, guys.